The slap lasted less than a second. The silence that followed lasted forever. When workers rushed into the hallway, they found one of the kindest women in the building lying motionless on the cold marble floor. Just moments earlier, she had been smiling. Now, paramedics were fighting to save her life, and standing a few feet away was the woman responsible, a CEO worth millions, a boss feared by everyone, a woman who believed she could humiliate, insult, and bully anyone without consequences. For years, employees had endured her rage. Some quit, some cried in secret, some prayed they would never become her next target. But nobody imagined that her temper would one day turn a normal workday into a homicide investigation. Nobody imagined that one act of arrogance would destroy 2 families, or that the same woman who once walked into the office like she owned the world would later walk into a courtroom in handcuffs, facing a sentence she never thought possible. The question wasn't whether she slapped the cleaner. Dozens of people saw it happen. The real question was this: how did one moment of anger send a powerful CEO from a luxury penthouse to a prison cell for the rest of her life? Because this wasn't just a story about a slap. It was a story about power, pride. Please subscribe to this channel, like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. You may be saving someone from trouble. So, Victoria Coleman was the CEO of Coleman Logistics, one of the fastest growing transportation companies in the state. At 46 years old, she was wealthy, powerful, and feared. The company employed more than 300 workers: drivers, accountants, managers, security personnel, cleaners, receptionists. Everyone knew her name, and everyone feared hearing it. Whenever Victoria walked through the office, conversations stopped. Employees lowered their eyes. People suddenly became busy, not because they respected her, because they were terrified of her. She had a reputation. If she caught someone making a mistake, she didn't correct them. She humiliated them, publicly. She once screamed at a receptionist for spelling a customer's name incorrectly. The poor young woman cried in the restroom for nearly an hour. Victoria didn't care. Another time, she threw a stack of files at an employee because a report arrived 5 minutes late. The employee resigned the next day. Again, Victoria didn't care. To her, everyone was replaceable. Everyone. Her managers constantly warned her. Human resources warned her. Even her lawyer warned her. One day, your behavior is going to create serious problems. Victoria always laughed. What are they going to do, she would ask. Fire me from my own company? And because she owned the company, nobody could stop her. The years passed. Her arrogance grew, and so did her cruelty. Meanwhile, 52-year-old Margaret Lewis lived a completely different life. Margaret worked as a cleaner in Victoria's office building. She wasn't rich, she didn't own expensive clothes, she drove an old car that constantly needed repairs. But everyone loved her. She remembered birthdays, she brought homemade cookies to work, she greeted everyone with a smile, even when life became difficult. And life had been difficult lately. Her husband had died 3 years earlier, she was helping raise 2 grandchildren after her daughter fell into financial trouble. Every paycheck mattered. Every hour mattered. Margaret worked hard because people depended on her. Still, she never complained. People often said she was the kind of person who made a room feel warmer simply by entering it. Nobody could imagine anyone hurting her, especially not over something so small. The incident began on a rainy Monday morning. Nothing seemed unusual. Employees arrived, phones rang, computers started humming. Business continued as normal. Around 8:30 a.m., Margaret was cleaning the executive hallway. The floor had just been mopped. A yellow caution sign stood nearby. Margaret carefully moved her cleaning cart along the corridor. At that exact moment, Victoria entered the building. She was already angry. A major client had threatened to cancel a contract. Traffic had delayed her commute. Her coffee had spilled in her luxury car. By the time she stepped into the office, she was looking for someone to blame. Anyone. As she walked through the executive hallway, her high heel slipped slightly on a damp section of the floor. She didn't fall, she barely stumbled. But that tiny moment was enough. Victoria exploded. "What is wrong with you?" she shouted. Her voice echoed through the hallway. Employees immediately looked up from their desks. Margaret froze. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said politely. "The floor is drying. That's why the warning sign is there." Victoria stared at the yellow caution sign. She knew Margaret was right, but she didn't care. Because Victoria never admitted mistakes. Never. Instead, she moved closer. "You think this is acceptable?" "No, ma'am, I was only trying to..." Before Margaret could finish speaking, Victoria raised her hand. Several employees witnessed what happened next. The slap echoed throughout the corridor.
A sharp crack. Silence followed. For one terrifying second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Margaret stumbled backward. Her body lost balance. The back of her head struck the marble floor. Hard. Very hard. The sound was sickening. Victoria's face immediately changed. Not because she felt guilty, because she realized something had gone wrong. Very wrong. Margaret wasn't moving. At first, employees assumed she was unconscious. Someone called emergency services. Another employee rushed to help. Minutes felt like hours. Paramedics arrived. They performed emergency treatment. Then they loaded Margaret into an ambulance. Victoria remained frozen. For the first time in years, she looked afraid. Really afraid. Because deep down, she knew exactly what had happened. The slap wasn't the problem anymore. The fall was. 3 hours later, doctors delivered devastating news. Margaret Lewis was dead. Severe traumatic brain injury. Massive bleeding inside the skull. Nothing could be done. She never regained consciousness. The entire company fell silent. Employees cried. Many couldn't believe it. Margaret had been alive that morning, laughing, smiling, planning dinner with her grandchildren. Now she was gone, because someone couldn't control her temper. Police investigators immediately launched a criminal investigation. This wasn't merely workplace misconduct anymore. This was potentially homicide. Detectives interviewed witnesses, security cameras were seized, phone records were collected. Every detail mattered. Victoria hired expensive attorneys, the best money could buy. At first, her legal team attempted damage control. They claimed the slap was minor. They argued the death was an accident. But then investigators reviewed the security footage. The video was devastating, crystal clear. There was no argument, no threat, no physical confrontation. Margaret never touched Victoria. The cleaner simply apologized. Then came the slap, a completely unnecessary act of violence. Everything was captured, frame by frame, second by second. The evidence spread quickly. News outlets picked up the story. Public outrage exploded. People who had never met Margaret suddenly knew her name, and they wanted justice. 6 months later, the trial began. The courtroom was packed.
Journalists filled every available seat. Margaret's family sat quietly in the front row. Victoria sat beside her attorneys. Gone were the confident smiles. Gone was the arrogance. Gone was the woman who thought she controlled everything. Now she was simply a defendant, and defendants don't make the rules. The prosecution carefully built its case. Witness after witness testified. Employees described years of bullying, years of intimidation, years of uncontrolled rage. The jury listened carefully. Then the security footage was shown. The room became silent. Some jurors visibly shook their heads. Others looked horrified, because the video showed something impossible to ignore. A powerful woman attacking a defenseless worker, for no reason. Victoria eventually took the stand. Her attorneys hoped she could convince the jury the incident was accidental. Instead, things became worse, much worse. Under cross-examination, prosecutors exposed contradiction after contradiction. She claimed she feared Margaret. The video disproved that. She claimed she barely touched her. The footage disproved that too. By the end of her testimony, even some of her supporters appeared doubtful. The trial lasted 4 weeks. Then came the verdict. The courtroom held its breath. The jury entered. Everyone stood. Victoria looked pale. The foreperson rose slowly. The judge asked for the decision. The answer came immediately. Guilty. The word landed like a hammer. Victoria closed her eyes. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Sentencing would come later, and that would be even worse. 3 weeks afterward, the courtroom gathered one final time. Margaret's grandchildren spoke. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. They described birthdays she would never attend, graduation she would never see, memories she would never create. Then the judge spoke. For nearly 20 minutes, he discussed power, responsibility, workplace abuse, human dignity, and the consequences of violence. Finally, he delivered the sentence, a sentence nobody expected to be so severe. Life imprisonment. The courtroom gasped. Victoria lowered her head. Her empire was gone. Her company was gone. Her freedom was gone. Everything she spent decades building disappeared because she couldn't control her anger for 5 seconds. 5 seconds. That was all it took. One slap, one fall, one death, one guilty verdict, and one life sentence. Today, the office building still stands. New employees work there. Business continues. But some workers still remember Margaret Lewis. They remember her smile, her kindness, her cookies.
and they remember the lesson that came from her tragic death. Power does not place anyone above the law. Not CEOs, not millionaires, not bosses, nobody. Because eventually, every action arrives at the same destination, a courtroom. And when that day comes, status means nothing. Only the truth matters.